You want to know how strong somebody is? Ask them. Everybody tenses up and tries to look as natural as possible. And there's nothing more unnatural than somebody trying to look natural. This is one of the most reliable tells you could possibly know. Nobody does that with aces. Very often you can just negate the top 10 to 15% of their range. I can't beat nothing, but I can beat that, whatever you've got.
Hola, beautiful people. ¿Cómo estás? Coming to you from Costa Rica. Today we're going to be learning live tells. Now, a lot of people don't want me to share this information. I can understand why. I have a group called Epiphany Poker. It's a community as much as it is a training site. We're talking every day about strategy. We're getting different callers in. We had Jungle Man come in recently. We had Darius, EQ Poker come in recently. And we're going to have much more. And I like to shower these guys with gifts. I like to give them as much as I can without it being too much. The cheap price of $77 a month. And one of the things that I've never taught publicly is live tells. Now, why should you listen to me about live tells? I started out just like you guys. I started out as an online player sitting in my grandma's study. We've all been there. When I first played live, it was goddamn confusing. Skip forward 5 years, and I've made $10 million in cashes in live poker with about a 300% ROI. Now, obviously, there's some rum good in there. I'm not denying that. It's not over a huge sample because live poker, you can never get a huge sample. But what I did do is I did continuously prove myself. There was a part of my career where I genuinely final table like 13 high rollers in a row. Now, there are a lot of them are small fields, some of them big field, but the amount of low variance you can get when you're very good at live tells is insane in tournaments. And this is why a lot of people will pay thousands and in some cases tens of thousands of dollars to learn what I've got to teach about live tells. There's a few testimonials on my website. One I really like. There's a YouTuber, go check him out. He's called Sam Clark. And he came to one of my retreats. He was the most skeptical about the live tells and about the more metaphysical things, the spiritual things. He left at least a little bit more of a believer in the spiritual and a lot more of a believer in the live tell aspect of things. To paraphrase him, I'm sure my editor can get the exact quote up. Something along the lines of, if this gets out, it will change the poker world. It is that powerful. This is what we're dealing with here. Now, I'm not going to be giving away all of my secrets on this YouTube video because this is for free. You're not part of the community yet. What I will do is I'll share a couple of really cool ones. Remember, you can only get profoundly good at live tells when you practice. And you got to practice by looking at people, whether you're in a hand or not in a hand. You have to be that person that, let's say in like 10 years time, you want to be the person that's got that 2,000 hours of staring at people on a poker table or through a screen. You know, the amount of time I've spent with the laptop up to my face when I'm trying to learn these things and see these things, it's insane. Do you want to be the kind of person that has that memory bank, that input, that database of times that you've looked at people and sought out pattern recognition? A brief introduction on live tells is that you can fit them into two categories. You can fit them into the quantifiable, qualifiable category where you can describe exactly what you've seen and how much it happened. And then the less describable one, which is more of like a feeling. Like Patrick Antonius is fantastic at that latter category. I'm good at that, but it's not very easy to teach. But what is very easy to teach and what I'm very, very good at is the quantifiable and qualifiable, meaning you can numerically and through words literally describe it. And it is the most powerful part of live tells in my opinion. This category of poker, this lens of poker, which is almost completely unexplored in the public realm. People have written books, but I really don't think that they're particularly good. The thing is that firstly, you need to be extremely good at seeing them. Secondly, you need to be very good at understanding them. And thirdly, you need to be intelligent enough to be able to then say, oh, okay, if I'm making 30% better reads on the river, how does that change my strategy? Well, now I have to be taking more passive lines. I have to be check calling flops and turns or checking back flops instead of c-betting because I'm going to be making better decisions with my third or fourth pair on the river. Well, if I'm also making better decisions on flop turn river, how does that change my pre-flop strategy? Well, actually, I now need to start defending less wide against people that I don't have particularly good reads on, and more wide against people that I do have very good reads on because I'm going to get more flop check raises through or c-bets through or whatever it's going to be. always pay attention to the dynamics of how this affects the strategy of the game. It's a beautiful thing. No solver can ever tell you what's out there. Poker is very much still alive. I do consider myself the best in the world at live tells, teaching them, seeing them, utilizing them. I've got the history to prove it, even if I haven't played much recently. I hope that this will teach you a lot about live tells. This is only 2 of, I think we listed 7 or so, but it's a phenomenal journey if you want to join me on it. Hope to see you in the Discord at epiphanypoker.com. Peace.
Number 4, peeling cards. The length of time that they peel up their cards is very relevant. Here's why. If you guys have a deck of cards in front of you, try peeling 2 aces. Look at how long it takes you to see that you have 2 aces. It ain't long. Same thing for if you have ace king. Doesn't take you long to look to see if you have ace king. Now, what does take a long time is if you have a hand like 10-9 suited, because you actually have to determine what the suits are for you to be able to know if you're going to play this hand or not. So that's why often when people are looking at their cards longer, even if it's just like a second longer, it's often that, and it's higher as well. It's not just longer. It's like they peel them up higher as well. It's to see if their cards are suited. Now, why is this important? Well, first of all, the most valuable way to exploit this is if you're in a tournament or a cash game and they peel them up longer than they normally do. Very often you can just negate the top 10 to 15% of their range out of there with probably like a 70% accuracy. It's like a lot. It's like a really, really reliable tell. Imagine I'm peeling 10-9 suited. It goes up quite a bit higher. Down. Here's what people do with ace king. And here's what people do with aces. Like, it's genuinely so funny watching people peel aces. If you've ever watched watch some tournaments where people really care about what hand they have and just watch people peel aces. It's this. The body tenses up so much. And everyone goes, and they go, shh. And they go, I'm opening 7-5 suited on the table of bitches. Yeah. Everybody tenses up and tries to look as natural as possible. And there's nothing more unnatural than somebody trying to look natural. As a past aspergic child trying to fit in with other people, I really understand how weird it looks when you're trying to be other people and you're trying to be normal. So look for the snap up, snap down tense. Never need to check the suits of your aces until later in the hand. This isn't always going to be reliable. Some people will have a balanced way of looking at it, but most people actually don't. Most people don't have a balanced way of looking at their cards. The second thing is if a recreational player holds up their cards and just looks at them, it's basically never aces or something super strong, really, but definitely not aces, kings, queens, even. Definitely not aces is the most important thing. So, if they're just like holding up the cards like that, nobody does that with aces. Everyone's terrified someone's going to look, someone's going to notice. Number 3. This one I got from none other than Phil Ivey. Yeah, let's let that sink in. I got this from the GOAT himself, the Reedmeister. And he actually just randomly said it on a not very seen interview. They were talking about live tells and a bunch of different players giving their opinions on it. And Phil Ivey goes, you want to know how strong somebody is? Ask them how much they got left in their stack. And I was like, ooh, I've tried that out, but I haven't gone too deep into it.
Oh my goodness, Jackson is re-raising.
How much do you got left? 360. 380. 360, 380.
I don't see how he can possibly continue in this hand. Everything Paul Jackson has done.
All in.
What? Absolutely astonishing poker.
What was point thinking, is there?
Let's try this out. And so what I did is I kept asking people how much they got in their stack, and it tilted the crap out of some people because sometimes I just knew. And sometimes Phil Ivey just knew. If you guys remember that iconic hand between Tom Dwan and Phil Ivey, where Tom Dwan triple barrel bluffs with 8-9 suited on a king queen 10 board against Phil Ivey's ace 6 of diamonds, where he rivers a 6. Tom Dwan bets 3/4 pot on the river, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And Phil Ivey goes, how much is that? And how much have you got behind? Tom Dwan is not happy to hear that. In fact, the commentator goes, that's the last thing you want to hear when you're Tom Dwan in this spot. Ivy stares at him and goes, I can't beat nothing, but I can beat that, whatever you've got. The reason that he knew that is because he asked Tom Dwan how much he had behind, and Tom Dwan did a few things. First of all, he was genuinely shaking. Fine, you can fake that. Second of all, he was being overly helpful. And this is what happens when people get caught in a lie, is that if they feel like there's some way to get out of it and be on the person who's catching them's good side, they'll be like overly passive, overly helpful, like, oh, let me do this for you. Of course, I'm a good person. I'll do this for you. I can do that for you. That is exactly what Phil Ivey's looking for in those spots. He's looking for somebody that goes, oh yeah, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. Do you want an exact count? Do you want it down to the dot? You know, stuff like that. They're not saying these things, but it's in their body language. It's in the way that they're counting it out. And so I played with this and I noticed a huge pattern. Here's what happens when somebody has a value hand and you ask them, this obviously not 100% of the time, it's just a tendency people have. If they have the nuts on the river and you go, how much have you got behind? They'll be sitting there and they'll go, or if they have aces pre-flop and you go, how much have you got behind? And they go, I'll go show you their stack, or they'll, you know, put their big chips in the front or whatever. Here's what somebody will do. If you say, how much have you got behind? And they're bluffing their nuts off. You go, how much have you got behind? And they go, it is genuinely like that. People will go, you know, and the best way to do it isn't even to ask those words. It's just to like peer over and try and see the stack behind their hands. Because what you're trying to do in these moments is take them out of their rehearsed way of acting. Take them out where they can no longer be a robot. They have to be a human. And they haven't got practice of how to, they haven't thought, oh, I'm going to balance it like this. So you peer over at their stack and they're like, oh, there you go. How many big chips? And they go, whoa. They don't say, whoa, they go, or, and then they might count them out and be really helpful as well. This is one of the most, I'm putting this in number 3, but it's one of the most reliable tells you could possibly know. Please experiment with it. Piss people off if you have to. Obviously, don't be an asshole about it, but always ask how much somebody has, or just like look and see what kind of reaction they have. The more relaxed they are, to summarize, the more likely it is to be a value hand. But if they are relaxed, it definitely still could be a bluff. But when they go like this, it's almost always a bluff. And if you do it pre-flop, it's almost always a hand that's like going to fold to a 3-bet. When they have the nuts, slow and steady, easy to see, very relaxed. When they're bluffing, they're nervous, the nervous system's on edge. They go, it's like this. You're sitting down and you go, how much have you got? And they go, like Ben and I used to have this in-joke about, you know, we'd tell hand histories, and you know, on the turn or on the river, he'd say like, and I asked him how much he had left. And we went, so I called. We didn't even need to explain it. It was just such a reliable tell. Now, a lot of my poker career is in tournaments, in live tournaments especially. A lot of people, they'll see some big hands and be like, oh, okay, yeah, Charlie can make some good reads on the rivers and stuff like that. That's not where the majority of the money that I've made in poker comes from, in live poker. The majority of the money that I made in live poker is getting more three bets through pre-flop than other people. Knowing that somebody has a weak range on the flop when they see bet and getting more check raises through. So if you can be the kind of guy on a final table that sees that somebody's at the bottom like 30% of their range based on a variety of tells, and you even get one three bet through. In fact, at both of my retreats, I showed people the Triton footage where I played against Linus Love and various other people like Jason Kuhn. And I was three betting trash hands every now and again. And the reason is that I could see that they were at the bottom of their range. And the amount of money that you can make in those scenarios is insane. Beautiful people. I'm glad you enjoyed it. If you have any more questions, go to the hashtag Ask Charlie bit. I'll be in there for maybe a little bit today. Tell me all about your live tell experiences after this. Tell me all about reads that you get. Go practice in casinos and stuff like that. And see you very soon, I'm sure. Peace.